The following episode describes acts of violence and murder. Listener discretion is advised. It's Saturday night in Worcester, May 26, 2018, Memorial Day weekend. 5 teenagers are walking together along Holland Road, heading toward Main Street in the city's Webster Square neighborhood. It's around 11:15 p.m. A vehicle pulls over on Holland Road. A man gets out of the car and fires 10 gunshots in the direction of the 5 teens. 16-year-old Sidney Krow Junior tries to run from the scene but soon collapses in the road on Main Street. He has been shot. 30 minutes later, Sidney is pronounced dead at the local hospital. The south end of Holland Road is sandwiched between Gates Lane Elementary School and Webster Square Laundromat and faces the Webster Square Plaza, which back in 2018 was home to Papa Gino's Pizzeria. It was just before 11 p.m. on Saturday night, and the staff at Papa Gino's had just closed up shop. As they stood around outside the restaurant discussing their plans for the long holiday weekend, they heard 10 rapid-fire gunshots coming from across the street near Holland Road. And then they saw a group of young people scatter up Main Street. Less than 100 yards away from the plaza's entrance, 16-year-old Sidney Krow Junior dropped to the ground. His 4 friends surrounded him, trying to help. A small white or silver vehicle sped away up Holland Road and out of sight. Welcome back to Unsolved Worcester. I'm your host, Dan Yeager. Unsolved Worcester takes a deep dive every Tuesday into the unsolved murders and missing persons cases under investigation by the Worcester Police Department's Detective Unit, the Worcester County District Attorney's Office, and the Massachusetts State Police. Be sure to visit Unsolved Worcester on Facebook and Instagram, and listen to all episodes for free at unsolvedworcester.com and on your favorite podcast streaming platforms. Check out the video for this episode with exclusive aerial views and more on the Unsolved Worcester YouTube page. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Sidney Krow's death was the first homicide in Worcester in 2018 and the city's first shooting death in nearly 2 years. Just 16 years old, Sidney was a student at the Gerald Creamer Center, an alternative high school for students who, for a variety of reasons, fall behind on course credits. Despite attending the Creamer Center, Sidney was still on pace to graduate on time, and he was interested in joining the Marines after graduation and studying culinary arts later in life. Sidney could often be found hanging out with his friends, riding his bike, helping out at his family's restaurant, Addie Lee's Soul Food, and playing pickup basketball games at the courts at University Park in Worcester's Main South. The day before he was killed, Sidney was at the courts shooting hoops. A vigil was held in Sidney's memory on those same courts at University Park on Memorial Day, 2 days after he was killed. His family, friends, and teachers described him as a good, polite kid who enjoyed school, wasn't a troublemaker, and they stressed that Sidney wasn't part of any gangs. On the night he was killed, it was likely Sidney was in the wrong place at the wrong time, hanging out with the wrong crowd. There are some reports indicating that it may have been a case of mistaken identity, that Sidney's murderer shot the wrong person. When he died, Sidney left a large family behind, including his mother, father, 2 sisters, 3 brothers, grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, and many more. Sidney is buried in Hope Cemetery in Worcester. A fundraiser was set up to help Sidney's family cover funeral expenses. It raised nearly $10,000 from 123 donations. On the GoFundMe page, Sidney's mother wrote, "Sidney was a bright and intelligent kid who always had a smile on his face. He will always be remembered for his sense of humor and positive attitude. Even though he was taken from us early, he will live on forever in our memories." Memorial Day weekend 2018 was an unusually violent weekend in Worcester. There were several reported shootings and stabbings over the 3-day holiday weekend. The only reported death and the first homicide of the year was Sidney Krow's shooting. There's very little known about exactly how things happened on that Saturday night, May 26th. Police said they were able to obtain surveillance footage from cameras in the area, but they were apparently not as informative as they would have liked them to be. What we do know is this: Sidney was walking along Holland Road with a group of 4 friends. It was around 11:30 p.m., and they were heading to a friend's house. A small, light-colored vehicle pulled out of Webster Square Plaza, traveled across Main Street, and entered Holland Road. The driver of the vehicle stopped the car near Sidney and his friends, pulled out a gun, and fired 10 shots in their direction. People living in the area didn't immediately think anything of it. They thought one of their neighbors was lighting off fireworks for the holiday. Just one of the bullets sprayed into the 5 teens connected with Sidney. The other 9 miraculously missed the other 4 teens. The boys all ran when the shots were fired, but Sidney didn't get far. Rounding the corner and past the laundromat, Sidney fell in the road in front of 1232 Main Street, roughly just 350 feet from where he was shot. When police arrived, they found the other 4 teenagers trying to help Sidney, desperately working to stop the bleeding. Sidney was taken to a hospital and was pronounced dead before midnight. Police found 10 shell casings in front of a 3-decker home at 4 Holland Road. To date, police haven't released any information about possible suspects or motives in Sidney's death. Sidney Krow isn't listed among the 74 unsolved homicide and missing person cases on Worcester Police Department's public listing of unresolved cases. But Sidney isn't alone in his absence from the WPD's list. Later this season, we will share the story of the city's second homicide of 2018, the shooting death of 23-year-old Jampy Rivera. Like Sidney, Jampy's murder is also unsolved, but absent from the police department's unresolved cases list. Thank you for listening. I'm Dan Yeager. Don't miss another episode. Click the notification button to get alerts when new episodes of Unsolved Worcester drop. If you enjoyed listening to this episode, please consider giving us a 5-star rating or clicking the like button on your YouTube videos. Anyone with information on the murder of Sidney Krow Junior are asked to contact the Worcester Police Detective Bureau at 508-799-8651 or send an anonymous text to 274-637. Write TIPWPD plus your message, or send an anonymous web-based message at worcesterma.gov/police. Come back next time for episode 3 of Unsolved Worcester, season 7, and the unsolved homicide of 17-year-old Jessica Jones, whose body was found stuffed in a sleeping bag along Chocolog Road in Uxbridge in 1989. Be sure to catch up on all previous episodes at unsolvedworcester.com. Special thanks to the Worcester Public Library, the Worcester Police Department, the City of Worcester, and our sponsors for making this possible. Season 7 of Unsolved Worcester wouldn't be possible without the generous contributions of our fundraising campaign donors, especially Marcia, Jason, and Nicole. Information on Sidney's case was gathered from multiple resources, including the Worcester Telegram and Gazette, Mass Live, Patch.com, Boston 25 News, and more. The Unsolved Worcester podcast music is provided by Tom LaBelzik of the Worcester Jazz Collective. This episode is written and produced by Pat Sargent. Drone footage provided by Ron Scott at Chasing Daylight Studio. Videography and editing by Colin Turner. This program is supported in part by a grant from the Worcester Arts Council and the National Endowment for the Arts. To find out more about how National Endowment for the Arts grants impact individuals and communities, visit www.arts.gov.